Welcome to the IAM CX podcast. This podcast series shares information and best practices on using customer experience strategies to increase customer engagement and operational success to make business in the Caribbean a paradise driven by data. I am Richard Dorsey, the CEO of IAM. We are a Caribbean-based data and marketing consulting company here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Once again, I'm joined by my awesome co-host and director of customer experience for IAM, Roger Nicholas. And on this CX podcast, we are featuring Miss Mandisa Makubalo, CEO and founder of the Unlimited Experiences South Africa group consulting firm, which is the first Black woman-owned consulting firm in South Africa. Amazing. And we thank her for coming across the waters this time. Before we even allow them to speak, we acknowledge their awesomeness and all the strength that they have. Miss Mandisa Makubalo was a 2022 top 25 global thought leader in customer loyalty by Thinkers 360. And 360 loves her because they acknowledge her as a top 100 global thought leader in design thinking, as well as a thought leader in project management. She has over 15 years of CX experience working with both South African and international brands in the supply chain, operations management, logistics, procurement, media and entertainment, travel and tourism, agriculture, radio, and higher education sectors. She is also the author of the State of CX Report, Hidden Truth on the State of CX in the Townships of South Africa. She was tagged by Engati as a top 30 CX thought leader and influencer in 2022. She's also recognized as a 100 globally recognized CX thought leaders and influencers. She was also a top 33 woman in CX to follow. She's also a CX International Award judge, a book author, Customer Experience 3, which sells on Amazon. Make sure you click and like it and buy it. And she's also a co-sponsor of Customer Experience Africa Summit and Awards, a co-sponsor of the State of CX in Africa Annual Report, as well as a board member in various boards across South Africa. The CX Queen for South Africa. We welcome Ms. Mandisa Makubalo to our IAM CX podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. That was shocking. Sometimes people talk about you and you're like, is that really me? Was it me we're talking about? So, yeah. So it's been an exciting. I actually realized last week that it's 7 years that we've been running the company.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I've been so excited about this all week. Sleepless nights. I tried my best to use some cucumbers last night so it doesn't show. But because for some reason, Richard, our energy is really connected on LinkedIn. And so this had to happen. So I'm glad it's happening as much as it is. So I'll start out with what I think is a simple question. Your experience crosses several industries. What specific gaps did you identify that led you to launching and founding the Unlimited Experiences South Africa Group?
First and foremost, I think the one that's very close to my heart is what I found was that there was a lack of access to what we call in South Africa expensive consulting skills for those coming from the underdeveloped communities. So consulting was predominantly known for those who have the budget, who have the money they need. So for me, there was a burden around how do I make my expert skills accessible to those that are sometimes overlooked and almost forgotten, in the marketplace. And they're not actively participating in the economy because of reasons such as not having the finances to afford these expert skills. So my heart is really about how do I make this knowledge, accessible to those that are deserving of the knowledge, but do not have the financial means to access the knowledge. So that was the first burden that I had. And then second, I think that talks to an element of inequality to a degree, because most people in the townships of South Africa, that's where I came from. And I was privileged enough to have been graced to travel across the globe in my corporate years, worked for large corporates, occupy quite senior positions, but not everybody had that for various reasons. So how do I plow back? How do I give back and make Mandisa accessible to a larger community? So that we can create a space that's quite equal in terms of access to knowledge. So that was the big thing for me. And then also, there's an element of exclusion to a degree in terms of how the political system is structured in South Africa.
We heard that before. Yes. In South Africa.
Yeah. So I mean that also was another problem for me, that, you know, there's all these systems and policies in place. You know, we hear the right words and terminology being used, but it's not practical on the ground. You still see traces of exclusion. So how do we then include those who are excluded through the knowledge that I have, so that we can all actively participate in the economy?
Yes.
You know, that was another key thing for me. And there was also limited knowledge of business. It's still the case in South Africa, in the townships predominantly for Black women. Because what you find is that those that are going into business right now, it's purely because I found myself unemployed. So I'm trying to get a salary. So now I have an idea, let me start a business. But that way of going into business, it's understandable because you're unemployed. But the system then doesn't acknowledge the fact that as a result of being unemployed, you found yourself in business. So already that excludes you, because if it comes to things like access to finance, you don't have the credentials because you've been unemployed. So how do I then transfer knowledge around how to build a solid and a scalable and a sustainable business? You know, we can't operate as small companies for 5 years and beyond that. And also we have an 80% mortality rate of startups in South Africa. That's a high number.
Yeah.
You know, and the sad part is we've got over 220 incubation hubs, and yet the mortality rate is 80%.
That's high. Wow.
So the math is not matching somewhere. That was an issue for me. No,
we say that very same thing in the Caribbean. The maths is not matching. Yep. Wow.
The maths is not matching, you know. So I had to sit down and look at all of these gaps and say, with what I have as Mandisa and graced enough to have, how do I bring true lasting transformation that can be generational? You know, how do we go about doing that? And not just in a space where I'm saying, I need funding to start this thing. All I have is here. And how can I take that and scale that, you know, and create a space to see more thriving Black women-owned businesses that can enter these formal supply chains, because right now they can't. So what can I do? So it was looking at my own knowledge and expertise, academic background. How can I package all of that to be able to, you know, eradicate this exclusion, eradicate inequality, give people access to knowledge, free their minds to realize that if this spot here is freed, you can actually do anything.
Amen.
You know, and I've been able to do that, I think, because I'm a true testimony of that. My voice carries much more weight, because I'm still in the townships, and I'm able to sit with Richard today and Roger, who are in the Caribbean island, but I'm in the township. So the township doesn't limit me in terms of how far I can travel and what impact I can have.
Yes.
You know, so those are the things, the gaps that I identified. I know sometimes, a lot of the times, when you speak about gaps, people are looking for other gaps, but these are the gaps that are unique to our people.
Yes.
You know, it might not be what one is looking to hear, but these are unique to us.
Yes.
And these are the gaps that I'm consistently looking for ways, you know, to try and see what can we do differently to what has been done. You know, so I think I'd leave it at that, these are the gaps that are unique to our environment specifically.
Right, right. And, you know, everything you said mirrors us in the Caribbean, right, Richard?
Oh, yes. I mean, we have
the same issues.
Recently, and we realized here in the Virgin Islands, there was a massive shift from business owners that had maybe 1 to 5 employees to now 0, which are startups. So the startups maybe grew, and don't quote me on the statistics, I haven't seen in a while. I said maybe we're 50% of small businesses shifted to entrepreneurs and startups because of COVID, because of some of the economic challenges that we're facing in the Caribbean. So I'm right there with you. But likewise, we also have a very tough time surviving as small businesses and startups because, like you said, the financial capital is not there, the access to
Yes.
guidance is not there, and sometimes the business environment itself is toxic. And I want to springboard off of that to say, you've traveled, you've educated yourself, you've packaged yourself. You sound like a nonprofit at heart, so I resonate because that's in my heart. I'm a nonprofit. I'm just less nonprofit and more for profit. But it's key that you created that package, that roadmap, in understanding what is necessary for success and having positive business outcomes. What would you consider, especially for your townships? And I just want to say thank you again. You're still home, and taking care of home is so important. We could run around and save the world and save all the flies somewhere else, off in those endangered flies. And if you do the thing, that's your thing. I'm not hitting on it. But home is very important to me, and I'm just amazed that it's so important to you. So for home, for the townships, what are the roadmaps you designed, especially for CX, so that they can see, hey, this is something that we can do to lift ourselves out of our current situations in terms of both economic and business struggles, and how they can apply it to grow their business? What did you see and what did you say there?
So in the last 2 years, I must say, because I'm transitioning now into a different space where God is calling me into. But initially, when I started off, I had set out to run workshops for township-based businesses. Now I'm talking about people who are running a barber in a team structure, which is their business. It's called a shack. So that's where they're running the barber from. The one has a hair salon in those containers, those big containers. The one is selling food, fast food, making the food from the kitchen at home. So those are you find the same type of businesses. It's either you're making hair, you're selling clothes, or you're making food. And we have a lot of that because the social ills in the townships, those kind of setups are responding to the social ills, which is around food insecurity,
Yes.
lack of food availability. So what you find then is that I had to look within the CX discipline. How do I contextualize CX for them? Because for them, it looks like it's something expensive. Mandisa works with big corporates. I don't have the budget for Mandisa, and this is quite far-fetched for me. And I had to deliver those workshops in my own language. So create programs in a language that they will be able to understand. Because a lot of them are quite illiterate. They haven't gone as far as high school, but they've got a mind for business and a heart for business. So how can I then take the information that I have, contextualize it for them? So what I had done was to bring training programs around the importance of customer understanding as a strategic tool to drive growth for your business.
Yes.
I called myself a midwife at some point because I said to them, I'm having to touch this umbilical cord that they have that attaches them to their business. I know it's your idea, but you can't ask people to fund your idea. Once you go into the market, it's no longer yours. You are there to serve, and you're asking people to bring you their money. So you've got to be always mindful of who they are, what are they looking for. It's not because entrepreneurs have a tendency of every time just polishing this business. So you polish it. I always say to them, you guys are polishing the shoe all the time, but you're not taking it out and exposing it to the rain, to the dust, and come back and polish. But you're polishing it, and you're so fearful of taking the shoe out. But you got to put the shoe on and go outside in the marketplace, expose it to all of this stuff that's happening in the marketplace. So I design programs around what is customer profitability. Of your customers, who of them are profitable? Because sometimes you think that just because Mandisa brings you more money or pays more, she's more profitable. But the reality is that maybe from a cost to serve perspective, Mandisa is actually your least, your customer. The one that brings you less money from a cost to serve is much more profitable. And I had to make them understand. Let's say you're selling I remember telling this one gentleman who was selling vegetables in a store, outside of his house. So I said to them, look, you know what you can do? Because I'm a business person, I'm your customer. When I go and buy from you, create conversations with Mandisa to understand who's Mandisa. You know, Mandisa is a business person. She's traveling. She's living with her mom and her daughter. She's quite busy. She doesn't have time to come and always drive to my store to buy vegetables. So let me understand the pattern. How often does she come? What does she buy? And then what I can do is to say, Mandisa, I've noticed you always buy cabbage, potatoes, spinach, and carrots, and you buy them weekly. How about I pre-deliver your stuff, and then you save money, you know? And then Mandisa pays you more, slightly more, because it becomes a personalized service because you really understand Mandisa, you know? And if I come to your store, have a hose around, hose the vegetables, keep them clean, you know? And then also look at buying cling wrap and maybe wrap them to protect them from the dust and everything. Because we're in the township, the store next to you, they're selling bright meat. So it's exposed to the smoke. So maybe cover your vegetables, you know. So teaching such basic things, but those decisions must be informed by who Mandisa is. And from there, you begin to start having access to a far bigger share of Mandisa's wallet. So I teach about the share of a customer's wallet, but I make it practical to that degree. You know, the one lady is selling clothes. She says to me, Mandisa, I buy clothes and I sell them. And sometimes my customers ask for delivery. So I ask her then, how much profit do you make? So she puts a markup on the original price. And then for her, that's a profit. So I said to her, do you add the cost of travel to that? No, I don't. You know, do you add your time to that? No, I don't. Do you separate your profit from your salary? No, I don't. So how much profit are you making? They realize, actually, I don't know. And when you deliver the items to your customers, what do? No, I ask them to pay a specific amount that covers the cost for the taxi. I take a public transport, a taxi. So I say to them, what's the risk involved in you delivering by public transport? Are your clothes insured? If you lose your item, who carries that cost? The customer himself. If you get mugged and you, for some reason, they stab you, who carries that cost? Does your company have the risk tolerance to carry such risk? No, it doesn't. Now get your customers to come and fetch their clothes. Because they can't just pay you 20 Rand to travel to and from. That's not enough to cover the cost and the risk exposure that you're exposing yourself to. So those are the principles that I teach through the workshops. And for those who own salons, I'll say, make an effort of cleaning your mirrors. And when I'm at the salon to do my hair, don't put your comb in your hair and then put it back in my hair. You know, such things, it's basic things, but I can't have you put a comb in your hair while you're plaiting, take it out and put, no, you don't do that. You know, make sure the floor is clean because those are key touch points. So touch points aren't complicated. You know, do you know how I get to find out about you as a brand? Word of mouth, is it WhatsApp? If you use WhatsApp, don't start putting pictures on WhatsApp about you having a drunk event the previous night. It's a business platform. You know, keep it consistent. What I see on WhatsApp and when I walk into your salon should be the same. Have a shoe box in your salon to ask for suggestions from customers and take the data to design and create better experiences. That's what big corporates do, but they use data analytics, they use artificial intelligence, but you have access to your customers at the store, get them to put information there. And when they're there, take note how they interact with the place. You know, when they're sitting down, what chats are they involved in? What music do they like? When they get there next time, ensure that you are one step ahead. You play that. If they have like gospel music, play that. If they like house music, play that. You know, just because you're a Christian and born again, don't put gospel music for your customers. Maybe some of them aren't Christians. You know, so don't bring you to that space. Make it about them. You know, so those are the basic things that I taught them. And most of them have now moved from owning these salons and tin structures to actual shopping centers, to brick and mortar, as a result of those basics.
Oh, wow. You know, common sense isn't common, but your your message sounds like common sense CX. and how to take advantage of it. And for small businesses, creating it in that framework for them, it's hard for them to fight against because you're not coming with all of the jargon and the technical language.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just blown away by clean your windows.
And I realized, I think that the delivery and the format of the workshop was quite key.
Mhm.
So I cannot go in that space with a PowerPoint presentation that has all of these frameworks. I lose them. So I had to flip charts. I used to use cookies. We create a space where it's like a workshop. And it's not me talking at them in front, but the way in which we set up, I'm sitting amongst them. I'm one of them because of the culture in the township. So I had to be cognizant of the culture of these people in the delivery and the format and how I promote these workshops.
So exactly what you're telling your businesses in the townships to do with their business, understand their customer and design the experience around them, not around you. You're doing the very same thing for them. You've done the same thing for them. So you're walking the talk.
And just one thing to add is that I wasn't able to say to them how I planned and structured these workshops. It's a demonstration of what CX is. Because it's one thing to tell them what to do, but not demonstrate it. So the design and my thinking around the thought process to the whole, to these workshops, I have to tell them what I have done for that delivery and that experience to be delivered so that they can see the tangibility of it in practice.
And I want to take this a 2 seconds to highlight this to our audience, because we have our audience is full of entrepreneurs all the way to vice presidents and CFOs. Because we're describing solutions for a small business, don't miss the message. The message is the same for large corporations. You must start by understanding your customer. That's the point that Mandisa was making. Don't miss that. You must design everything from the customer's perspective. And with that in mind, I want to read a quote you wrote in a newsletter for a women's entrepreneurship blog, I believe. And I love this quote. And this quote is what inspired the title. Okay. And then I'm going to ask you to expand on it and relate some things that you said. The greatest value was a scalable framework for setting business units across the organization. And not only that, but to review existing business units against this new framework and set of standards. First of all, how would you define scalable framework? And how can customer experience strategy help businesses design one?
Okay. So a scalable, I think I must separate the two words. So something that's scalable, it's something that you can expand. It's expandable, it's extensible. And it will something that can continue to operate even when the size and the volume changes. That's what scalability talks about. Now, a framework is intended to be the support structure into a building.
Yes.
So it's essential in providing the support structure into building. So you have the scalability element and then the framework. And the key thing about the framework, which is quite key, is that it allows you to ensure alignment, across the organization.
Yes.
The alignment is what is sometimes often missing. And in this case, where I came up with that quote, I was brought in by an organization in Johannesburg, in South Africa, where they were looking to set up a CX business unit. Now, there was a lot of debate around whether, because there's this whole CX movement. So they saw CX floating around on social media. Now we want to also bring CX. It's exciting. We don't want to miss out on this bandwagon, so let's jump in. And they realized they actually don't know much about CX. So they brought me in to say, Mandisa, can you come and help us design the CX business unit? I said, okay, well, fine, I can come in, but I think the best value I can deliver for you is to spend some time to really understand the thought process behind wanting to build this business unit.
Right.
And as I was spending time with them, we had 4 weeks where I would come in for a few hours and just spend time with the C-level executives. But in that room, there was operations as well. So what I found, because I had to go in with the mind of listening. As much as we think sometimes what the customer is telling you, it might not be the problem. So I needed to come in there with an open mind, allow myself to listen, suspend the need to want to make recommendations immediately, suspend the need to want to bring my own frameworks immediately, but to really spend time, because that's where the context comes in, because content, being able to contextualize a solution is quite important. So I spent the first week, as I was watching and listening, it was completely two different worlds. So operations sees a recruitment challenge. We are having a recruitment problem. We need to recruit for this business unit. And the C-level executives is looking at a business challenge. So already there's conflict in terms of how this thing is viewed. Yes. So they're fighting, they're not listening to one another, there's frustrations, I'm not being listened to, but nobody's actually listening. So I needed to sit there and suspend everything about Mandisa, but just to intentionally listen and watch the body language, the frustration. Some of them weren't saying much. They were just sitting there, but you could see they were frustrated. So I had to take all that insights and be able to come back and say, based on what I've observed and the conversations, and I had to get so much documents from them around what's the strategic goals for the company, what's the vision for the next 5 years, where are you heading, what's your people strategy, what's your customer strategy if you have one. So all of that information was critical in me being able to develop a scalable framework. And then I went back with my findings, which I do share on the article in terms of what I had found, and then go into recommendations.
Right.
And if you look at the approach, that's really around what CX does.
Yes,
it's to seek that understanding, to do the research, the diagnostics, before you can actually design a strategy. And then you go into implementation and change management and all of that. So I needed to follow that approach. And when I delivered the solution to them in terms of my thinking and the framework that they today use, so what they've done, what we're able to do, is to create a framework for them that they are now using to set up every new division across the organization. So how you structure finance, how you design HR, how you design IT is based on that framework. The framework is the same, but what happens within the space, whether it's IT, whether it's procurement, is different. The activities, the deliverables are different, but how we design the space, we replicate the model throughout the organization. So that's what they have right now, which is working quite well. But then I removed myself from the organization because as a thought leader, that's what I do. Partner with an organization in terms of your thinking and your thought process, and then you leave them. You don't want to create a reliance where they rely on you. And I found that if you are part of an organization for longer than 6 months, you get lost in the system. There's no appreciation of your skills, and you become like one of them. So my goal is to really just partner with you in terms of my thought, create something that you can scale across the organization so that there's always alignment to the business goals and where you are heading. For the next 5 years, where are you going? And how is the design of the spaces going to allow you to do that? I could not create a framework for them in hindsight and in isolation of the company's vision and goals and objectives. So that is a winning recipe for me. Always to say, okay, I'm here, but I want to know, where are you heading? Where are you going? What's your plan for the next 5 years? What are your goals and objectives? Then I can then say, from the CX perspective, what can be done from a customer perspective to help the organization achieve their goals? And that's the
one employee.
So if a company says you want to increase market share by 10% in the next 5 years. So from a customer experience perspective, what are the key things that can be done to allow the company to achieve the 10%? What's the CX contribution to the 10% increase in market share? But what we find is that we come in with CX, we neglect everything else, and then you fail to make the connection in terms of how is what you are going to do going to allow the company achieve tangibly in terms of their balance sheet and their income statement and their cash flow. Where will they be able to see traces of your input in those financial statements.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to highlight what you just said. I hope you were taking notes because there was a lot of meat in there. Richard, do you agree?
Yes.
There was a lot in there.
Break it down for them.
So make certain that you're taking notes. And this is specifically for those of us who are already in customer experience, and we're looking for ways to either grow our influence within our organization or grow our influence with customers. It's not about us. As much as we have value to bring, when we get there, what we're hearing Mandisa say is sit with the customer and understand where they are right now. It's like how we do a diagnostic baseline on customers when we get started. Your diagnostic baseline with the customer, your client, as a CX practitioner, is listening to their C-suite and the cross-functional team leads as to where they feel they are and where they want to go. And then from that information, you can then help them co-design a way forward using your expertise. And so that way it stays aligned with their goals, their expectations. You get increased buy-in, right, Mandisa, from them.
Yes.
And then you have a better chance of not only keeping that business, but earning more business from them in the form of referrals or that type of thing. So that was amazing to me. We could shut down right here. I'm done.
If I could just add 4 key things, because I think what we're failing to do, the mindset of most professionals isn't geared enough to operate at that level. So what I also share in that article or in that document is that, before you actually start with the design or putting together your recommendation, what I've shared with the organization is that they had a head of CX already, someone who was in the CS space that they've moved into CX. And I said to them, the worst mistake you can do is to assume that someone who was in the CS space automatically can transition to CX. It's different worlds altogether.
Yes.
So don't make that mistake. And if you are in the CS space, customer services, don't automatically assume that you are the right fit for CX. CX requires political players. You have to be a political player because you're mobilizing at an organizational level. CS is more isolated and quite, one of the functions of the organization. But if you are going to influence at an organizational level, your mind should be able to think at an organizational level. Yes. Understand the key stakeholders in the organizations, who to mobilize, and what I found is that a lot of the times the why is missing. So the why is quite important. Because I had to think in terms of why are you embarking on the CX journey? And sometimes it might look like I'm talking myself out of the opportunity, but I'm actually not. Because we have to think about sustainable value. So why are we embarking on this journey? And then also be able to be forward thinking as a professional, because companies have 10-year, 12-year, 5-year plans. So you have to be forward thinking as a professional. And then also you need to have a well-documented plan if you are going to engage at an executive level. That's the way they speak. Those guys have plans and plans and plans in those offices. They've got documents and documents. And then also, I think another thing is being able to say that now that I have this plan, the implementation process to it, because lo and behold, what you find is that the plans are sitting here. It's not documented. So the plan is ready. Having a plan in your head doesn't really help. And we might think that CX is failing. We're not winning the budget battles, but your goal isn't to win the budget battle. Your goal is to deliver value. So if you go in there and say, I'm here to win this battle, you're already starting on a bad footing. It's about communicating this value for the business, through this well-documented, well-thought-out plan that in a language that the C-suite understands.
Yeah. I like to call it the C-suite love language. Yes. What addresses revenue, what addresses cost, what addresses competitive advantage. That's their love language. And if it doesn't sound like that and they can't make direct connections, we lose their interest and their investment.
Yes.
Exactly. So what's interesting is you've been sharing tidbits from both the township and I assume at bigger entities. Could you share with us maybe a good CX story that kind of underpins some of the things you've been saying? And then also share a bad story. We don't want everybody to believe that CX is roses and coffee and tea all the time. There are entities or organizations that either implement it improperly, botch it, or do something worse. So could you give us a good story and a bad story that you've experienced with CX?
I think a good story is the one that I spoke about. It's one of the good stories, the one
Yes,
that I
it's a
spoke about with this insurance company. I think a bad story, and what I'd done was to record a video that I shared on LinkedIn because I felt that there might be more people that are bound to make this kind of mistake. So let me
mhm,
share my experience to educate others, and people were quite receptive of it, and they were quite grateful that I shared the video because I used what I had, the mistake I made to educate other people. So
mhm,
I've been approached by an institution in the higher education space. It's one of the top universities, business schools in the African continent, where they were looking for an end-to-end CX solution, and they were struggling in terms of transitioning from the in-person way of learning to the remote way of learning. So I was invited to take part in the tender process. I got Debbie involved to come in from a training perspective and the training, which is just quite good at training. And they've got a suite of training programs at Niche. And then I got a partner out in Belgium who's more in the change management and the tech side of things. So he would spec out the technological requirements that will
mhm,
support the solution. And I had
mhm,
a one person that's based in Johannesburg who came in who was more good in building dashboards and performance indexes and all of that. And then I
mm,
came in with the program management and the strategy side of things. And we all partnered together, developed a solution which we pitched. So the mistake that I made when we had been doing the numbers around the solution was to leave that up to the team, and work with the team in doing the numbers around the budget for the whole project.
oh,
And bearing in mind that one person is out in Belgium, so his currency is in pounds and we in
mhm,
rands, and the rand is quite weak compared to the pound.
yes,
So what I had done, I had been that open and honest in terms of this is the budget we're dealing with. Where do you see yourself as much as I brought them in as because they've got their own individual companies. But when I brought them in, it was quite clear you coming in as a project team member
yes,
and you don't come in as a business owner.
yes,
But when it came to doing the numbers and the budgets, I allowed them to operate as business owners and not project
mm,
team members. So it
mm,
shot up the budget because we went as far as the top two. So we were competing against one of the top five consulting firms in South Africa,
mm,
which operates, I don't want to mention names, but it's quite a popular one. And we were up
mhm,
against them and we lost on pricing purely
mm,
because of that error that we made. But the university was quite pleased in terms of our thinking, the
mhm,
methodology, the framework, the
mhm,
approach, our credentials, our experience, all of that. But we failed on something as simple as
the
doing the
pricing.
numbers.
Mm,
Now, one might think, but Mandisa, how is this a CX related mistake? It is a CX related mistake. Because remember, when we built the end to end solution for the organization, the financials and the budget is part of that.
yes,
So you can't do good on the technicalities of CX and then fail at the numbers. And that then taught me to go back and say, Mandisa, learn how to build, the solutions and how to work out the numbers when you do these enterprise solutions. Because it was at an enterprise level, and
mhm,
I used to doing smaller projects, some of them big, but not to that scale. So it was
mhm,
a first one for me. But I was quite happy that we had gone as far as the top two. That for
yes,
me was a great achievement. And being invited to participate in the process by the continent top business school, that was a win for me. But the
mhm,
biggest learning was to say, don't neglect the financials because that is part of that entire process. It's
yes,
not it's not isolated to it. But I think my mentality at that time, I did not include that as part of that entire end-to-end process. But how we do our numbers is also a touch point and a critical one when developing solutions for organizations. So I think that was a bad one for me, but it turned out good because I've been invited again by the same institution for something different.
Yes, that's
Awesome.
awesome. I think I want to connect that for our small business owners and our entrepreneurs. When you're dealing with a CX consultant or you're looking to get into the CX space, don't shoot for the moon immediately. Don't always think that you can't do it because it's some overpriced or out of your budget package. You can start small, and that's something Roger has been heralding for many times on this podcast. You can start small, but the flip side is you can't start so small that you actually can't achieve success. And that's the other caveat that we've noticed, is that they're so afraid to even start, they'll neglect it altogether, or they'll do a hodgepodge thing. So I think you're right. The risk to the investment is necessary to do the math, but it's worth the risk once you can cover that investment. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point, Richard. Mandisa, I want to dive in a little bit into customer journey analysis and mapping. In what ways does understanding of customer journey help transform business outcomes?
So yesterday, as I was speaking at the Africa Summit, that my dear sister Debbie is successfully organized, but there was a question there around the fact that there's been an increase in terms of WhatsApp usage. It was a top channel, communication channel, followed by telephone and email. So the question was around, so what can companies, or to what can we account that achievement of 80% usage and increase in WhatsApp? You know, everybody had different perspectives and all of that. So my response to that was that I think sometimes we can get so bogged down with wanting to have a suite of communication channels. That's enough. So when it comes to customer journey and understanding the customer's journey, the key thing is for WhatsApp to effectively work and create the right experience, you need to know your customers, first of all. Secondly, the content that you communicate on WhatsApp. What content do you communicate on telephone? What content do you communicate on email?
Yes.
Will either make a good experience or bad experience.
Yes.
The frequency of you using WhatsApp is quite important.
Very.
And that information you can only get from having an understanding of your customers and a journey that travel with you as an organization. But having WhatsApp alone as a communication channel and relying on it is not enough. Imagine Mandisa sitting in a podcast, maybe I'm late with one of my accounts, and I'm sitting in a family function perhaps, then I get a WhatsApp saying that your account is overdue, please pay urgently. Really? You know, so that is something that you can chat to me on WhatsApp perhaps.
Yes.
If you understand your customers that well, and then also, how does Mandisa prefer communication? Do we use WhatsApp for video content? Do we use WhatsApp for written content? Which platform do we use for what kind of information? How does Mandisa want to consume information? You know? And that's where you can really, really get to create those positive and delightful experiences. Then WhatsApp becomes this wonder. You know, it does, and it delivers results for you as an organization that you were not expecting. But without having real understanding of these people that are communicating to, who they are, how they prefer us to reach out to them, how often and at what times, that is quite important.
Yes.
And then you can get better experiences because everybody has WhatsApp, everybody's on the telephone, everybody has email. But I know that there are certain pieces of information I do not want to get on WhatsApp. I promise you. I get so upset when I get certain things on WhatsApp. There's certain content that I would prefer. If you're inviting me to the podcast, it's a business transaction. You know, for me to take you seriously, pop me an email, make it professional. That says a lot to me about what I'm invited to.
Yes.
And if you spend time, like sometimes on LinkedIn, I would get a DM that says, we have a role for a call center manager. I was doing that 10 years ago. Really? And then you tell me that, Mandisa, we looked at your profile. This role fits you. No, you haven't. You can't offer me a position as a call center manager that I had done 10 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
And already I'm put off. I feel so, it's condescending.
Yes.
I
Yes.
feel like this has got nothing to do with me. You are just pushing numbers. The agenda is about you.
Yes.
But if you really spend time and you see, oh, Mandisa is involved in this, Mandisa is a thought leader, then I can invite you to our podcast, because our podcast is about, Mandisa has a passion for sharing knowledge. Let's invite her. So then that platform becomes a great tool that you can use to drive positive outcomes for your business. And you can see that there's a connectedness in terms of my vision and our agenda.
Yes.
Those are the practical examples that I can use in terms of really being able to understand. Because when we even talk about engagement yesterday, and I said to them, myself and Debbie always talk about a blueprint. So you have to have a blueprint of this customer's journey. Those people that are held accountable for the engagement phase of the journey, do they know that they are accountable and they are responsible for the engagement? Chances are they don't know. And you're penalizing them for driving engagement, but they don't know that my role is more in the engagement part. And how does my role as an engagement, person who's held accountable for engagement, how do I fit into this entire journey?
Yes.
Do they know that there's a journey, first of all? Or do you just know that there's a journey, but they don't know? So the blueprint allows you to create this visual representation for everybody, and they begin to understand, in this complex journey, where do I fit in?
Yes.
And what is my role? And how does it impact the bigger picture?
Yes. Yes.
And what is engagement? Whether I'm responding on WhatsApp, whether I'm responding maybe on email, I am engaging.
Yes.
And what is my responsibility in that? So those are the kind of simplicities that you can explain to make it more palatable to your people, more that are in the operations and the front line. But for you at an executive level, you have a snapshot of the entire organization, but then you bring it down to those individuals where they can see their name in that blueprint, and they start embracing that, really, so I play a role in the very big picture. That there's a different respect of their position and their contribution to the organization.
Yes. Yes, I hear you. I think that was so articulately said, Mandisa, because customer journey mapping or analysis, whichever term you want to use, it really does inform our listening strategy, where we're going to start paying more attention. And when we've paid attention, how we're going to prioritize our next move, whether it's the way we recruit, the way we train, the way we onboard, the way our contact center supports a new customer. Do we need a full-blown customer success team, or do we just need a salesperson who really knows what to do in terms of servicing an account? It gives so much information. I want to share some statistics. I believe it was from Deloitte. I'm going on memory here. That says businesses who work on customer journey to improve the customer journey usually see on average 3.5 times more revenue from referrals, 56% more upsells and cross-sells. The cost to serve can go down 15 to 20%. Okay. And there's a 10 to 15% increase in revenue just by managing your customer journey. So that's the gravitas of understanding and implementing customer journey analysis and mapping and the whole process. So I just wanted to underscore that. But thank you so much for saying that the way you did, Mandisa, by giving it a live example. That was really, really helpful.
And I think also, something I had shared with a different organization is that, when you onboard your people, if you have this blueprint, get HR involved because they are trusted with bringing talent to the organization, and developing talent and retaining talent. So get them involved and for them to understand this blueprint and this customer journey. And then also when people are onboarded, as part of demonstrating their role in the organization and their job specs, show them the blueprint at the entry level. Help them see what are they getting into
They fit in.
and what is their responsibility and how does it fit in the bigger picture, so that you shift their mind by the time they enter, because once they're in the system, it's difficult to take them out and then
show them. Yes.
Yes, bring them on board them with that sense of understanding this bigger picture.
Yes.
And how their job spec was designed in line to deliver on that, and how it impacts the entire ecosystem and the entire customer journey. And then also you can go into lifetime value of the customer. But there's nothing wrong with sharing that level of knowledge.
Yes. Yes.
As you talk about roles and looking at the overall blueprint for the customer journey, say I'm a CX professional or someone who's interested in CX in a larger organization. What are some of the conversations or support information that they can use to get C-suite aligned to a CX strategy or to invest more in CX? What happens when someone calls and says, Mandisa, I can't get my CEO to see the need. Help me them because I know we're suffering. How do you encourage them? How do you support them? What do you say to them?
So I touched on some of the practical steps. And again, in that article that I wrote, I talk about these things. So because we're so focused on CX, we invest in CX related knowledge. We don't invest in business knowledge. And that's a recipe for disaster, because you can't expect to influence people that think at that level if you don't have an understanding and invest in knowledge of business.
Yes.
I spend a lot of time looking at financial statements of different organizations. I listen to YouTube on interviews where CEOs are interviewed for me to understand what keeps them awake at night, what matters to them, what are they taking interest in, so that I can find those sweet spots of how to communicate with them, And also what I write about in the article is the importance of creating a business case. You need to build a business case for CX because that's a communication tool. But don't build the business case in isolation of other stakeholders in the entire organization.
Right.
A person that is a CFO and manages the finance space knows, which projects are approved without a shadow of doubt.
Yes.
Build a relationship, and maybe I can leverage the authority they have by building a relationship. So when I go and present this business case, they can go in there with me, and they know how to present information to the C-level executive. So how can I work with that person so that I know that I'm skilled in the CX technicalities? I'm not skilled in the numbers, but he is. So how can I bring him alongside? And then the project office is used to designing projects that go as far as the CS level, the executive team. Now work with the program manager. As a CX person, you might not have program management skills, and that's okay. But there are people that have program management skills that you can bring with you and leverage their expertise to be able to put the solid business case. And once it's done, present it to those individuals and get their opinion.
Yes.
Because it's so easy for us to tick our own homework and give yourself 100%. Do your homework, tick 100%.
Yeah, that's a keeper quote. That quote is a keeper.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do that. So it doesn't mean that when I go and speak to the program manager or the CFO or the person that's running the BI team, the BAs, the process guys, it doesn't mean that I'm less skilled and qualified to be a CX, but I'm mature enough to say that I don't know, but this is an organizational initiative. So how
Correct.
can we mobilize, so by getting them involved in helping you build a business case, you are cutting through the clutter of getting buy-in.
Yes.
Because you have all designed this, the solution. So you're already halfway through in winning those pushbacks.
Those votes, yes.
Because the time what we do is I go and I sit in my room, I design, I do all of this stuff, and then I go out and I say, this is what I've done. So you're expecting everybody to come into your world. And that's a wrong recipe.
That's not, it's not, and it's not realistic.
It's also a strategy if you engage with, because if you have a sense of saying, I want to know more about the CFO, about the project office, about HR, because HR is skilled in talent attraction.
Yes.
They know the numbers of onboarding a person. Yes. So let's go and speak to them for those numbers. I don't know the numbers, but I know I need CX heads and CX seats filled. But you don't know the numbers attached to that. So I think we have to be mature enough to get to that stage to say that I don't know everything there is to know, but I've got a community around me hence I said, you must be a political player, be able to influence at that level.
Yes. Have cross-functional impact and influence.
Yes.
And know what you don't know and and own it. Know what you don't know.
But even in that engagement that Mandisa describes, Richard, what it does is it not only helps you get the information you need to build your business case, it simultaneously aligns the functional teams with the process. So now it's easier to merge everyone's contribution and innovation into the solution, into the design. So now you're not only winning yeses, as Mandisa said, but you're also winning synchronicity. Because now we're building the framework, to use Mandisa's description. We're building a framework that's now duplicable across departments.
Yes.
So I really, really like that example. Just to go in a little bit deeper. So when it comes to that customer journey analysis, understanding the customer's journey with the business, how granular should companies get, and how often should they refer to that analysis to either get back on track or start anew? But in your experience, anyway.
In my experience, I always say that that needs to be like a living document.
Yes.
Because we are operating in a space that's continuously evolving. We are also always evolving.
Yes.
Talent comes in, talent goes out, customers churn, customers stay, we retain, there's advocacy, satisfaction goes up and down. So it's a living document that can't just be left there to collect dust. We've done it once, and then it's fine, it's there. It looks pretty on the wall, but there's got to be some ownership that is given to maintaining. It needs maintenance, continuous maintenance. Otherwise, in the absence of that, then you begin to feel that it was a once-off program that we did.
That's right.
And collecting information and analyzing information, it can't be a one-off exercise. It's not a one-off exercise.
No.
Because there's a continuous influx of information at a transactional level into the organization that is completely changing. So you need to be building systems that allows you to be able to continuously review, analyze data, at that level, so that there's this continuous culture of improvement.
Yes.
And what you're able to do if you have that culture is that you don't bombard the organization with a massive project or program that requires a budget sign off. But there's little improvement that takes place that customers don't even feel nor see. But if it's a massive program that you do, and now we're going to analyze data, we're going to sit with the teams, we're going to look at what are the gaps are. So then you have this massive project that you have to do. It disrupts the entire system. It becomes costly. Customers can see But if you create that culture of, these small improvements that you pick up.
Short wins. Yes.
Yes, yeah. So that's how granular you get. Like, you don't have to wait for something massive. Then you really bring this entire team that comes, and this team is moved away from their roles because now we've got this big project we're dealing with. Yes, there will be some big, massive changes, which is understandable, but also there's so much wins, little wins that organizations are missing every single day because you're waiting on this massive project that will require sign off by 20 different people. It gets to someone's desk. There's a whole pile of other projects that are waiting. I always said to I remember dealing with heads of departments. I think it was through Ghana. It was in Ghana, where I said through a masterclass, I said to them that, instead of you trying to get buy-in and someone to believe in your dream, that you're going to change the organization, you are the Jesus of the company. Get some work done every day. Have small wins every day, that when people start to see these small wins and the value, they've got no reason but to say, we see the value.
Yeah.
But right now, you're sitting there, you're creating a document, you're spending months and months on getting this business case together, and there's nothing wrong with it. But you build a business case based on actual wins that you've experienced that nobody saw, and you're not applauded for them. That is much more. So I was saying to entrepreneurs in the last week, that instead of saying, one lady was saying to me, Mandisa, I'm trying to get funding. I've got this NPO. I said to her, no. Funding is the least of the problems. Create something that's fundable, that will attract funding without you saying anything. Right now, you are fighting the wrong fight. You don't have anything that is fundable. Create something that will attract funding without you saying anything. Similar to CX professionals, instead of sitting there and trying to create this massive document and that looks and buying all these tools that looks pink, purple, and black and all these colors. No. Get some debt under your fingers. Get some work done. Kill small lions like David, and then build up a business. Then nobody can argue numbers. Those guys numbers. Nobody can argue tangible results.
Yes.
Amen. Yeah. Woo. Roger, this has been a workshop. Thank you for leading this.
Yeah. I told you, Mandisa is a heavy hitter. Ladies and gentlemen, only heavy hitters for you on the IAM CX podcast, okay? Only heavy hitters. Wow. Richard, question, I'm speechless at this moment.
I'm full. I think we've covered small business, someone who's stuck in the middle, underneath management that doesn't understand. We've addressed CEOs and CFOs. I guess one more deep dive into C-suite. Sometimes CX can be a cookie cutter. You just follow the formula. Everybody wants to, I call it the Betty Crocker problem. They just want to crack the egg. Buy the product, buy the package, crack the egg. What's a non-cookie cutter approach that kind of shakes up things for C-suite and CFO, something that is a little out of the box that you help them to kind of like understand, okay, this is a problem, these are solutions, but this is a different way of even looking at that problem. Have you come across something like that in your experience?
I actually wrote an article at some point. I think the title was about cookie cut approaches. It was something just sparked that. And I saw an image of someone cutting cookies, and they almost looked alike. They looked alike. And I was like, cookie cut approaches doesn't work in the CX space. I think the one word that comes as a response to that is context. Being able to contextualize, it's important because we so want to replicate everything across every customer that we miss the context. And when they're not buying to what you're saying, it's got nothing to do with you, but they can't connect it to their organization. And it's almost a slap in one's face as someone who's from a CX space, because what we are is we speak about understanding customers. So to really understand the organization and C-suite in terms of their agenda, what keeps them up. I'll give you an example that I used a while back where I was trying to create a content strategy for the whole year that I will use on LinkedIn to add value and distribute content for business leaders. And then I went out and I identified a few people that are decision makers in the organizations based on their roles. I followed them over a couple of weeks just to get a sense of who they are, what are they chatting about. I invited them, and I was quite frank in saying, I want to build a content strategy to share knowledge that will help you. Can we have a conversation? And then they agreed. Grateful to God for that. Nobody pushed back. I had 30-minute chats with them. In those conversations, not once did I mention CX. It was me getting to know them. What keeps you awake at night? If I were to be Santa Claus, what would you like to see in your goodie bag? What are the top 3 things that that are on your wish list? You know, how often do you refer to outside content to make decisions internally? Do you prefer books? Do you prefer clips? Do you prefer audio? Do you prefer visuals? What do you prefer? And what form of do you read local books or do you read global books? You know, and they were so open and honest. And at the end, I had to suspend marketing who I am. And they gave me all the information. I took that back and I went and built a 12-month contact strategy. And I was able to be intentional in terms of what content am I going to share, you know, and in what format. At the end of the year, all 12 articles went into an ebook that was about 60 pages long that we then shared out and said, we know it's January. You are all going out on a strategic planning session to plan for the year. Take this book and use this as a guide. For me, I knew that I wanted to enter boardrooms, but I couldn't physically do so. So those articles sat in boardrooms that I wasn't even present. So to a degree, there was also a sales tactic to it.
Of course.
But it wasn't me going out to sell, but I used value to attract business.
Pull strategy.
I like that. Thank you for that. Raja, we've spent time.
Yes. Mandisa, thank you so much. Wow, this has been amazing. I know, audience, I know you want to get to South Africa right now to meet Mandisa in person. I know. You can't, but I know, right? But so just to wrap up, I know you wear multiple hats, you have multiple passions. What are some things that either Mandisa Makubalo is getting involved in besides like the CX Summit, or that the Unlimited Experiences South Africa Group Consulting is getting involved in? Are there any books on the horizon? Anything new and exciting that our guests would want to know about you and your business?
So I've been told I must write a number of books, and right now I don't have the capacity to do so. There's a lot of work I'm doing on the ground, but I've spent the last 4 months on the ground with Black women in the townships and business as part of validating a thesis that I have. And it's something that God is calling me into. I've got to be quite clear. So it's a space that God is calling me into. And so the conversations are allowing me to really, really, really get to know these people, who they are. And it's been an emotional journey because they cry in those rooms. It's almost like it becomes like a sermon. And that's the depth of the challenges facing people that you're not going to find on some white paper or some research report. What we see on the research around the townships is nothing compared to the issues that Black women are facing in the townships. You know, and it also responds to what I've been saying, that the maths is not mathing. Because 200 incubation programs, 80% mortality rate. Something is missing.
Yes.
And I've got to figure out what is missing. Because we've
Yes.
been incubating businesses, but not incubating the person. The person needs to be incubated so
Yes.
that when you put on those technical skills, there's sustainability and longevity that you get to see. But
Yes.
right now, the person has been neglected. So you incubate a business that is owned by a person who was unemployed for the last 5 years, and there's no financial, they've got a bad relationship with money. Some people have a relationship with money because they've been unemployed. You know, so what I've managed to build now, and it's successfully registered, it's called the South African Black Women Think Tank. So we've built a think tank for Black women that is going to serve as a powerhouse of knowledge, where we create our own policy, we're commissioning research for the township, by the township, in the township. At the moment, we have research from the Caribbean island telling us what we're doing in the township, which is wrong. The Caribbean island must come to us for information about us, not them telling us who we are. So it is for the township, by the township, and in the township.
Yes.
And there's research that will be commercialized through the think tank, through corporates, and we're building a number of growth hubs. We're not doing incubation hubs, we're doing growth hubs. But the design of the growth hubs is going to be informed by the research insights that we get from the research part of the think tank.
Yes.
And the think tank starts from a young girl that's in high school, creating an ecosystem where we can put them into the think tank until we see them in the economy participating actively. So we're starting at a grassroots level. So there's 4 sets of women. There's your young girl, Black girl specifically, and there's your women, your graduates that are in university, but specifically in business. So at the moment in South Africa, once you graduate, you go into the formal marketplace, then you have to work your way up like 6 years to get to what you actually qualified to do. So through the growth hubs, we'll take you as a graduate. We want your academic background from a business perspective to create solutions for entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs will now have access to knowledge from a BCom graduate, fresh knowledge from the university. We'll put them to the growth hub, give them the skills, and then put them into the group consulting firm as freelance consultants. So you leave the university, you get into the consulting space, you earn what you are qualified for, and not wait 5 years to get to that stage. And then we have also women that are already in corporates. Like myself, when I was in the corporate, I was quite vocal. I had all of these ideas, but I wasn't being listened to. I was in these senior positions as a token. I'm the only black, senior person. And I would always say, it's like buying the dog and doing the barking yourself. So that's what it's about. You bring me in, but you chain me. I can only do so much. So we're creating a space where we're going to take these frustrated Black women professionals from corporates and bring them into the growth hub. Then we can tap into their corporate experience and train them up to be thought leaders that will act as advisors through the consulting group firm.
Yes.
Then the final group of women is Black women entrepreneurs that will also get to develop, and we need to start seeing more enterprises. I can't be the only one establishing a group consulting firm. No way.
Yes.
We need more.
Yes.
But again, the space is intended to disciple women back to God and have them operating in their identity. Because right now they're not. So there's going to be a lot of policy making, policy writing, challenging policies. There's a lot that's going to be happening. At this stage, we are in the research phase, and I've been quite fortunate enough to get a university in the UK that has offered to to help us get their professors to train us on how to commission research, design research, to document it, to write white papers and all of that. at no, it's a sponsorship that we've managed to get.
Oh, okay. Nice. Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
that's where I'm transitioning to right now.
Wow. That's a movement. That's powerful, Mandisa. I absolutely expect you to hit your goals and surpass them even, because I know your spirit, your legacy speaks for itself in terms of your work ethic and quality. So I know you're going to deliver at amazing levels in this new transition. So I am not worried. I accept Africa, forget Africa. The world will be blessed. Even though it's starting at the township level, that's a very transferable model to the place like a Caribbean. So we may need to talk about some stuff offline.
Yes.
But thank you so much for taking it. Thank you so much for saying yes, Mandisa. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending again another episode of the IAM CX podcast. Just to give a brief introduction to our guest for our next podcast, we're going to be talking with an experienced former banker who came into banking and didn't have the tools he needed to affect his business and grow his business. CX got introduced to him, and the capabilities he acquired as a result of that helped to change his business. So he's going to go into that transition from not having certain capabilities to adding some new capabilities that absolutely changed the outcomes for him and his business. So look forward to sharing that with you. I want to again thank so much Mandisa Makubalo for joining us, sharing her wisdom and her time. We appreciate you so much. I want to give all respect, of course, to my co-host and CEO, Richard Dorsey. This is the IAM CX podcast. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And as usual, go win.